Good, everybody. I'm out and about, so I'll be listening and I'll definitely speak up when I can.
Okay, everybody, I'm streaming on YouTube right now and Facebook, and we're going to go ahead and record the space also. Hey, Geno, how's it going?
What's going on? How you guys doing?
I'm doing good. I'm going from one end of my house to the other because I want to make sure I record this one.
Awesome. I'm trying to. This is his first time in a Twitter space, so
It needs to be. He needs to use it on his phone, not on the desktop. Make sure that's happening because it doesn't work on the desktop.
okay.
Not yet.
I don't know if you heard that, but let me go send him a message.
Yeah, so he needs to make sure his app is updated, and then he can come in. Hey, Brent, how's it going? And we have Caged In. Hello, how's it going? Oh, this looks good too. And then, hey, She Crypto, what's going on?
All right, he's switching to the phone now. Wow. How big is this one?
Hello.
What's going on, James?
Hi, how are you?
Great. So happy for you to join us today.
Sorry about that. I was on the desktop, so.
No problem. I don't know why they don't have that in.
It's all a learning experience, so.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So give us 1 second.
You know,
here.
in my early day of live streaming, they always built the platform off of desktop. It was never off of mobile. And along the way, it was now mostly, and it was never off of iOS. It's always been Android. And now, with all the other platform, everyone's focused on mobile and iOS. Something to think about how things have changed, but then it hasn't.
Like the use of laptops and everything. Everybody uses basically their phone or tablet. I hardly ever see anybody on a laptop anymore.
Oh, that's true. I think my boss only uses his iPad with a little keyboard. So anyway, I'm glad we finally made it, and it didn't take too long to figure out. So we did it.
Absolutely. So let me go ahead and introduce my co-host, Tanya.
Hi, everyone. I'm the communication specialist, so I figure out how we're going to promote and raise awareness about this. But, I watched The Godfather. I'm old enough to watch it when it first came out, so this is exciting for me. Welcome, James. How are you?
I'm fine. How did you first see Godfather? What was your experience?
Well, you got to realize I'm originally from Vietnam, so I'm first generation refugee. So it's for us. My cousin was all about that. So I remember in high school, my friends were talking about it. So we watched it. My cousin took us to watch it. I didn't quite understand it too much.
Yeah.
I just thought it was kind of, But over the years and every single time I watched it, I got more of the story. I don't know. When I was younger, I didn't get it. I didn't quite.
No,
I never liked that kind of. I didn't like it. I was kind of like, oh, that's too much going on. I wanted to see beautiful things. So, but as I got older, I got like really obsessed with it. Then I started like watching. I watched it. I own the CDs and everything. I own all the just in case if I miss an episode or something, I'd rewatch it again. But then now, we have Netflix and all these streaming sites. So this is, and it's so I'm thrilled to have you on today so we can chat with you about your project.
Well, I think that's the most important thing is people have probably seen these films, but in clips, they may not realize that they've seen the whole film, but then they'll say, "Oh, I've seen that. I've seen the horse head scene," or, and it's, I experienced it the same way. I watched the film with my mom. I mean, back in the day, TV, over broadcast TV. This is over movie night. They did Friday night movies. They don't do that so much because now it's streaming and everything. But where our family would watch the movie on ABC at 8 o'clock, and that would be the movie to watch. So, and they always showed it around Christmas for some reason. So,
Can you imagine
I remember seeing it.
life without cable?
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. I mean, I remember when cable came to our town in Santa Cruz, they knocked on the door and it was United Artists, MGM's company came and delivered cable to us for the first time. That was
Wow.
early 90s, 30 years ago. That wasn't that long ago when you think
Wow.
about it, and how internet was just starting to come in the 90s. But yeah, it's amazing to think, but it was not that long ago that how communication has changed in such a short period of time.
Just think where it's going to be 10 years from now or 20 years from now.
Yeah, it's leaps and bounds. We'll think about what we'll be in 10, 15 years and what we'll be doing.
Filmmaking as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you've ever seen Hearts of Darkness. It was a documentary about the making of Apocalypse Now, and Francis was on camera saying, this was early 90s, late 80s, and he said, I could see some young girl using a small camera and making it the most beautiful art as possible. And then, right there, he's talking about, phones, in here, this is the early 90s, but he was foreseeing that anyone will be able to make the best art or finest art possible on small technology that's available to anyone.
Absolutely. Even video games.
Yeah.
I've been a huge gamer my whole entire life, and I am super excited to see where gaming will be at 10 years from now. We're already dabbling with VR, and I just can't wait to see where it
Well,
goes.
I think that will be probably the next huge shift is VR. I mean, it's kind of still a little bit of a gimmick thing, but it certainly has a lot of ability to change that space for gamers to be more interactive and be more with groups of people, visually, and in games, look that in the last 20 years, games were taken seriously now as the new movie, but interactive movies and being part of that experience. And I remember buying my first game. It was ColecoVision in Atari. It was the competitor to Atari back in the 80s. And how far, and then the Commodore 64. I was always sort of I was not IBM or PC. I was sort of the off-brand guy. But I had the Amiga and the Commodore 64, and those games were fun, and then seeing how things really shifted and took off in the 90s and where we're at now. And now playing Fortnite, and how that's a very communal activity, and that, I don't think we ever saw that coming.
The graphics are so close to being photorealistic. Like I have an Xbox, and like on the Xbox XS, like if you play the football game or the NBA 2K, the basketball game, it's crazy how realistic.
Yeah.
And how realistic the graphics are and the physics are.
Yeah. I think it was like John Madden really kind of the game. I think really kind of pushed that over the edge back in the 90s, and how that really kind of changed the sports gaming industry and took it seriously. Yeah, there was a great documentary on Netflix about the history of video games, and they talk about how sports games, how that evolved from that 2D space down to this photorealistic being part of the game, and it's incredible.
It's amazing. And like, I just got my Oculus headset. So with, I've been in the VR space heavy for like the last week.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. Like the nightclubs and the nightlife. We just started a club promotion company to throw events in the metaverse. So that's what we're working on now. But I mean, it's huge. And I know like in the future, the graphics are going to be even more realistic than they are now. It's going to be an evolution, just like it was for, you know, the consoles. So that's going to be crazy when VR gets to that level. But
Yeah,
you know,
and I
I'd
think
say
it will be also incredible about how it can evolve to for filmmakers. I'm not that we're in the front of it, but I mean Francis Coppola very much interested in exploring how people can interact in that real-time space and create a narrative film that audience can participate. And I think that's really hitting on that virtual reality. How will that, I think, will be the revolution, you know, how people will capture that, or how do you design that space in virtual reality where you're filming it's basically 4 dimensions in some ways, pulling the user from one dimension into this 3D landscape, and in creating that. So,
or like virtual reality films, like films made specifically for VR. You put your headset on,
that's sort of
and you
what
can watch them.
I'm talking about. How that I think is going to be the next sort of big thing where you are brought into that world. But how is that going to be? How are you going to bring that all together? Your cinematography, how you're capturing all that data.
Right. I think it would be like you know, you'd probably film the movie with one of those, like a real nice 360 camera, and it's just up to the user of how they watch it.
Yeah.
It could be different every time. Like the user could watch it from one angle on, you know, when he watches it the first time, or if he could be looking at a totally different angle the second time.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the possibilities would be endless, but you know, that would start with the person that's actually watching the film.
Yeah.
But
what's dangerous about it is, you know, where we've gone towards, you know, television sort of helped, unfortunately, you know, back in the 50s, put people back home, you know, watching things at home. So you miss that communal experience. And virtual reality has that sort of inclination of where you're going to put people individually, more isolation in some ways. You're creating this isolation by nature of putting this headset on, but to have this communal experience. So I hope that there's some way to still have that theatrical experience, because there is something to be said of sharing a film with your neighbor and in live person. So how do you do that, so to not lose that experience? Because I certainly don't want to hurt the theaters. You know, the theaters are having a hard time as it is, to compete with streaming and people, especially being with COVID, people have been used to now staying home because the TVs are so very good and large. But Francis was always one to ensure that, you know, his film should be seen on a big screen with your neighbors, and that's a good communal experience that we can't overlook. So if we do go into that space, you know, in virtual reality, how do you make sure you still have that aspect of that experience?
Right. I don't know. I'm sure we'll figure it out here soon.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a movie in virtual reality. It was Inception when it first came.
Yes.
They shot it in virtual reality. It was pretty cool. I sat there and I literally watched the building fall apart, and then I went from scene to scene. Yeah, when it first came out, they had it. It was I liked it a lot. It was really interesting how you feel like you're part of it, and you experience everything. Like you just sit there and look around, and you're like part of the scene.
Now, that was Christopher Nolan's film Inception?
I think so.
Yes, and he shot it in virtual reality.
I watched it in virtual reality, meaning I sat with, I had VR glasses on, because I wore my first glasses in 2015.
Yeah, so not too long ago, and you could look around at 360 degrees. Yeah,
Mhm.
interesting.
Yeah, and then like I've shot VR also, and the thing with VR is you can shoot it in a way that, so if you upload it to YouTube and you put it that it's VR because it's shot in 360, then there's a button on YouTube for the video that where they click it, they put the phone in their glasses if they wanted to, and they're able to
Oh
have
yeah,
a VR.
yeah. Well, I think
Yeah.
that was my first experience with VR was Google's Cardboard. You know, you got the
Oh
cardboard
yeah. Oh yeah.
glasses and you slid their phone in it, so it worked.
Oh yeah, the daydream. Yeah,
Yeah.
the daydream
Well,
stuff.
I actually tried to get my clients on the whole concept of this, and it didn't do too well. They didn't get it. I think I was way ahead of my time. You know, I had clients who were like, you know, in real estate. I had clients in like even filmmakers. And I was like, you know, why don't you upload part of it and then send the investors or send the people who you want to. I had one project, they wanted to crowdfund it, and I just thought it would be a great perk for crowdfunding because it just thought it was, you know, so that it's shipped to your house. It's almost like a movie thing, you know. But back then we didn't have the pandemic, so people didn't get it. Like, they didn't get the fact that, hey, I can get something delivered to my house. It's a box with the same logo, same everything. I just put my phone in it and I get to experience it. And it's kind of like a private invite to the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
So we talked about stuff like that, but people didn't get it. It was like to print on a Google box. It was like, I think $3 or $4.
Yeah, no, it was
Per
cheap. It was a
box.
cheap way to engage people and teach people what the virtual reality is, because everybody had the phone, you know. So it was just
But
easy
nobody
to
wanted to
do.
do that.
Yeah.
No one wanted to do that. They thought it was weird.
Yeah,
But they do it
you know
now.
who got it? Surprisingly, an industry. It's nice when technology can bring it to so many different groups of people, and real estate agents got it. And even before the pandemic, they had virtual reality. You didn't have to leave your home. You didn't have to go to the actual house that you were interested in purchasing. You could be in your own home in front of your computer and get a virtual tour of a home that you're interested in. And I thought that was a cool way of engaging people.
Well, I help a lot of clients open up their business, and Google, there's actually a whole thing of Google for it's a Google 360 walk.
Yeah.
So you hire these people and they come into, so if you have a restaurant or and they do it for houses too, they told me.
Yeah.
So they come in, they shoot everything in a 360 view. And so that if you wanted to, you can look at this house, and depending how they want to market the house, they can have a website for the house. And then that 360 view can be, you can go and experience what the house looked like. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it has happened, but I don't think people embraced it like back then than it is today. Today, I think anything like today, I'll be like, okay, we got to NFT the box itself, you know, and send them an NFT and the box and tell them where to go. I mean, like it's like almost like a scavenger hunt, and people love that kind of stuff because with the, you know, like if you think about Pokemon, how that was marketed, and where they brought like mom, granddad, grandfather, grandmother, everybody got together and went out and looked for Pokemon because it was an AR, you know, effect. And now with movies and everything, oh my gosh, just to market a movie, I would hire an AR developer just to build so that you can actually create a whole story before they even watch your movie.
No, it has a great potential. You could be sitting in front of the director and the cinematographer and get a virtual in-person Q&A session instead of, you know, on a TV. It'll have more impact. They're right in front of you doing a personal Q&A.
And see, I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, no, I see a lot. So
James, we didn't get a chance to really get to know you, who you are. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself?
Yes, we got a little sidetracked there, but it was a good sidetrack. That's fine. My name is James Mockoski, and I take care of Francis Ford Coppola's film archive, his film library. He's one of the few filmmakers that actually own his own films or fought to keep his films with him, and that's been a journey that I've been with him for about 20 years. He's been a filmmaker for 50 plus years. We're celebrating the Godfather anniversary this month. That marked its 50th anniversary. But yeah, Francis owns from his first film, Dementia 13 from 1963, on up to his latest films, personal films that he's done in the last few years, from Youth Without Youth to Tetro and Twixt. But we also have The Conversation and Apocalypse Now, and but we have collaborate with our other studios that own his films, such as The Godfather with Paramount. And also, as part of the Archivist, I help restore his films, because these films have been loved since they're shot on an analog format, film, 35 millimeter film. These films go through a process that does put a lot of wear and tear on it, and damage, scratches, dirt have collected over the many years. I say loved, and they're never damaged out of spite. They're just the process of getting these things to an audience does create wear. They're sort of abused in this process. So when I get a film such as The Godfather or Apocalypse, we have to transform it from the analog to the digital. We scan the film, and I have to then, once I get it to a digital platform on my computer, my desktop, I have software that can start, like Photoshop, hand paint or hand clean these films to take and remove scratches, dirt, any blemishes that the chemical process added onto the film over the years. So that's what I do in a nutshell.
Wow.
Yeah. And then once it goes, we either go back to film, or usually if there's enough money, we go back to film, or because that film is still a very safe method for preservation. These films in the right condition, you can last hundreds to thousands of years in the right storage conditions. If not, if you don't have the right storage condition, these things can fade and turn brittle and deteriorate rather quickly. But they are a very safe format to store films. But unlike digital, which is still very temporary, we don't really have a great method in the digital realm for preservation. Software changes, the material is still finicky. Hard drives fail at any given moment. So unlike a film, which is a physical representation on an element that you can easily see and reproduce, hard drive fails, it's gone. And so we're looking for the next paradigm shift, or the next technology shift on storage in the digital world. And I hope that comes. But we're in this period that I think you'll find generations lost of people's photos or movies because it was just stored on a digital platform that's gone, or forgotten about, or thrown away, because hard drives, you look at it, it's like who knows what it is, and throws it out. So we have to be very, very careful in the digital age.
Absolutely. Wow. How long is that process of restoring one film? Let's say, how long did it take you?
Every film is different. And every reel of film, something like Apocalypse is 20 reels of film. It's millions, it's hundreds of thousands of feet, with hundreds of thousands of frames. So it depends on how loved or how shown. Sometimes, the films I have in the 80s weren't worn that much, and then the negatives were in good shape. But sometimes the negatives of the 70s, a lot of films were printed directly from the negative, and a lot of scratches. So, Apocalypse took me a number of years to go through. Godfather took me about a year. And I'm just one person. So sometimes, the studios have the luxury of using labs that have multiple people involved in cleaning, so they could cut their time in half. But it's just me and an editor who work on these films, so it takes me a lot longer. But usually I'd say, on a long film like Apocalypse, about a year. But if the film is fairly clean, it could take me 2 to 3 months.
Wow. Very meticulous.
Yes. Well, it is. I think I calculated Godfather Apocalypse about 300,000 frames. So,
And how many parts of The Godfather were there?
how many parts?
Yeah.
How many reels of film?
Or no, like this. I think there was a Godfather 2.
Yes,
correct?
there was 3 films. It's a trilogy. It has 3 films: Godfather 1, 2, and 3. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And so how did you come about meeting
I met
Francis Ford Coppola?
Francis for the first time when he was working on a film called One from the Heart in 2000, I would say 2002, 2003, about 20 years ago. And he was working on one of his older titles that he did in 1982 called One from the Heart. And they were doing their sort of the first restoration. Francis really started restoring his films probably about when I came. He did a director's cut of Apocalypse Now called Apocalypse Now Redux in 2000. And that was a point where it was a very difficult process. There was a lot of film for that film, and they needed extra help. So they needed an archivist. So I was working out in LA, but didn't see myself always working in LA because I grew up in Northern California, and they had a movie studio. Francis was a filmmaker that thought it was very important to do his own work and didn't want to make studio films. So he moved up to Northern California with George Lucas to form his own company, American Zoetrope. So I wrote a letter and said, this is what I do, and I hope someday I could work for you. And it was the right timing, because they needed someone to help them with their restoration of One from the Heart and Outsiders. So it was all timing.
Wow, the stars were definitely aligned for you with that one. Amazing.
That's with filmmaking and everything. It's all about timing and luck, I think.
So what do you think about
NFT? Well, we have yet to do it. We've been asked. There is a lot of interest. I think our company has wanting to explore doing that with some of our films and offering those in some way, but we have yet to get into it just yet. But it's that, I think, as you explained earlier, it's hard to get people's heads around something new, a virtual reality. The FT is also kind of a hard thing to grasp because it's not tangible, it's not something you can hold in your hand. So that I think is kind of a foreign concept for a lot of people, but I think it's definitely something that is here and should be explored, and we want to offer that in appropriate. So what's your experience been?
Well, I got in NFT February of last year. I'm not an artist. I'm a communication specialist. Yeah. So I look at the trends before most people do, and I learn and I get involved in it, and then I pitch it to my clients. So and I've experienced them all. I experienced when people sell their first NFT. I experienced when they first start out. I experienced people who just got yanked. They add the wallet to the wrong website, and it took everything out. So I've experienced all that, but I come to think more about when I look at the film industry, and I've helped a lot of different people, filmmakers, crowdfund and raise some funding for them to make their film. But when I look at NFT and Web3 and the blockchain, the opportunity is there so much. Because, at first you think, oh, that's not tangible. But nowadays, if you, and we get a lot of these marketing material where, you want to sign up for the museum, you want to be a membership, you want to get a year membership. So you get to go to this VIP cocktail parties and you get to see this, and that. So I look at that in the same way for filmmakers who want to get an NFT, because people don't buy an NFT because everybody, maybe they are because everyone's doing it, but usually they invest in their NFT because like collecting fine art, from music to pictures, now movies. So I just feel that people will pay or bid for a token that gives them the ability to be able to maybe see The Godfather, snippets about The Godfather that no one has ever seen before.
I think that's a very interesting point. I mean, you see a film and 2 hours long, but you don't realize how much footage was shot that never wound up into a film. And to be able to give a person an opportunity to have something unique that no one has ever seen before, I think has value, and it does open up a load of ability, because we have content. People were in an age of content that needs content. Well, films create a lot of content that don't get utilized, and so this is another opportunity or another avenue to explore and offer that content in a new way.
I think it would be so cool to have hidden scenes of The Godfather, but sell them as NFTs or never before seen, like behind the scenes footage.
Yeah.
NFT form, collector's edition type thing. Francis would kill the game with that.
Yeah, no, it's no different than offering bonus extras or putting enticements. When you make a DVD or a Blu-ray or a 4K disc, you have to offer value-added material and deleted scenes. But this sort of is another opportunity to offer that. You can't offer all the stuff. There's still a limit to disk capacity on discs, but so. An NFT does it gives you the ability to offer other content that wasn't able to put onto a disc.
Yeah, and a lot of people.
James, don't forget, if you pitch this to him and he goes with it, you have to let Geno and I, the team, we need to be next to you, especially if you're gonna do a launch, because we want to report on it.
Yeah,
because I think that would be incredible.
Yeah, no, it's I think we are. Francis is 82, but he's always been one. He's never shy about new technology, and always loves to explore what the newest thing is, because we're not stagnant. Filmmaking is not stagnant. Filmmaking is very young in 100 years, but if you look at where we've come up from 100 years, we're not. This is not just how filmmaking is going to be and how we see the film. In another 100 years, stories are going to be told in very different way. So NFTs and those give you, there are other tools to our tool bag of how to tell stories or offer our other content to people. NFTs are kind of in some ways a very personal thing, but it lets still people that personal experience to engage with your film. So it's a fun avenue to have as a filmmaker.
A lot of artists, they'll create like an NFT and probably make only a set few, 20 or 50, which in turn increases the value of those NFTs. So say if Francis created only 50 Godfather NFTs of, hidden film, hidden footage or behind the scenes footage, the value of those would increase substantially. So
yeah,
that'd be definitely something awesome to do.
Yeah, no, it's still very. I think people still see it as kind of a niche thing, but I think it has potential, to explore. So many things are being thrown out there. It's just like it'll be interesting to see how these things will stay, or if it has longevity. You just never know.
She Crypto has her hand up. She has a question. She Crypto, what's happening?
Hey, what's up, guys? How's everybody doing? I do have like a question, but not so much. I just want to impress upon everybody, like, the work that he's doing is something that needs to continue, because there's so many classic films, and people don't understand the laborious process it takes to work in like manual, like analog film, and it's something that needs to continue. I actually worked on like a film and had to like log all the sound and on the same back and all that kind of stuff, and it's something, considering coming from working in digital, like raw film. So what are your thoughts on going from like raw, like shooting on raw digital to like then going to film? Because at some point, I don't know, I love film. I mean, you can never, it's nothing's like the real thing. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's two things, and thank you very much. It's a good question, and you're right. The work still needs to continue. People always ask me, why are we restoring Apocalypse? Hasn't it already? Well, technology changes. We weren't able to do what we could do 20 years ago, and we have to do it again. Or so it is important to still preserve and keep the original material. As to your point. What was it? Say your question one more time.
I shoot raw.
Oh yeah, raw. Yes, I'm sorry. The raw to film. Well, that's also very important. If it's a money problem, shooting a raw and outputting to film, that is the best way preservation wise, because of the longevity of film you can keep, and you can ensure that you can have your film on the best material that it can be stored for a very long time. So if you have the budget, that's the obviously the best way to preserve your film. So I would always encourage that, but it's really a very expensive process.
Very expensive,
yeah.
That's what I
And
thought.
not everyone can do that, and certainly not all your footage. It has to be the finished film to be out on film. So
yeah. Well, thanks for that. At least I get some clarification. I always kind of thought that would be like the ultimate like end result. And just so you guys know,
it should be, and Sophia Coppola, others, they do insist on budgeting for their films to go back out to film. And most studios, if they have the budget, and not all of them do, will make protection masters on film. Tarantino, he still shoots on film, but he insists on doing films. But a lot of people who are very film fanatics who shoot digital insist that their films, like Nolan, that they're out on 70 millimeter or they're out on film, and so people see that.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's the ultimate goal. What are your thoughts on particular film stock? Like, I go back and I look at these older films, and to me, nothing still can compare. And it seems as though a lot of the times that they shot with like Panavision and things like that. So that's the ultimate goal for me, because it seems like that stuff has really stood the test of time, and nothing can touch it. Nothing can touch it.
It's certainly the problem with the film today is that there's not a huge demand as there was 30, 40, 50 years ago that justified having a variety of film stocks. You don't have the film stocks that you once did. And it doesn't justify Kodak to invest in creating different stocks. So there's really only a couple now. So it's just not the same, but and I don't see that unfortunately changing unless everybody insists on going back to film. But it's just a different aesthetic. An artist works differently with different things, and it's not to say that the digital is inferior. It's just a different look, and an artist may prefer a very sharp, clean, steady image, and that's their preference, and that's fine. And film, Tarantino and all who are very grow up with film, that's their aesthetic, and that's how they prefer their films to be shot.
Exactly.
So.
And just so you guys know, probably on the 22nd of this month, I'll be streaming Legal Threat, which is my feature film. So it'll be on Beam. Probably, I think I'll start at like 7:45 Central Standard Time, just so if you guys want to check it out, if you're in the room.
Awesome.
That's great.
Well, definitely in the house.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I do really appreciate. That was a very good question. I appreciate that. I prefer, if anyone has those questions, I prefer that. That's the best way to engage. And I always think when doing Q&As, instead of listening to me ramble on for an hour, is to have a good questions from the audience.
Yeah, I'm very interested on I know that the film stock thing has changed, and I definitely have more of a like the way I shot Legal Threat. It definitely resolves, very cinematically, So I shot on Leica, so that's the closest thing that I could have got to to the Panavision kind of aesthetic is what I have an affinity
Yeah.
towards. So it's very interesting to talk to someone. It's a very important opportunity to kind of gauge, like, what kind of film stock, will give you a certain kind of, because I used to look that stuff up, but of course, like, that stuff is not readily accessible. So it's just interesting because you work with the stuff. So, I'm pretty sure you can throw something up on a reel and say, yeah, that's going to be that, or that looks like it was filmed on this or something. So it's just a good opportunity to speak to somebody who works, in film, because that would be like the end result if you feel like you got something that you want to outlast your years. But thank you for your time.
Yeah.
And you guys rock, Geno and Tanya.
We love you.
Thank you.
We will definitely be in the house to watch your film on Beam. Can't wait. So, I see that the actual 4K vision that comes out on March 22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, March
And that's
22nd,
just
the 4K Ultra HD 8 with HDR version will come out March 22nd. There'll be two sets. There's a collector set and then a standard set that will be offered next week. So,
and when I think about 4K and stuff like that, like the film was already shot in super high definition. It's like, how do you even get it any more, defined than that?
well, the
Like,
thing
how
with
does it go?
35 millimeter film is that they estimate that it is 4K, that it captured 4K information. So this is unlocking all the information that was stored on that original negative, and everything in the past wasn't able to achieve on home video the ability to unlock that, in HD. So this is 4 times the amount of information. Only in theaters where the human eye was able to experience all that information, and that's what the supposedly human eye cannot process or see about 4K's worth. So it's interesting, when you go 8K or higher, if it's really can a human eye, can you really experience that information? So
Yeah, I was just about to ask. So, like, when they drop the 8K televisions and cameras and things like that,
I don't
where do we
think
go
that
then?
really people will appreciate it. It's starting to get, it's hard for even people to see the difference between HD and 4K. It starts getting kind of a minimal amount of return.
Right.
But, I feel that after a 4K restoration that you can walk away and say that's the film. You're not missing anything. You got what was on that original negative. And that's harder to justify with older films to go unless it was shot on 70 or larger format that captured more data to justify going higher. They'll do that. They're going to want you because it's marketing and it's money, and it's not another way to get out the film again. So I'm sure it will be transferred in 8K, but if you did a comparison, I don't think the average person is going to really be able to appreciate that.
I'm thinking that's how they might transition over into the VR world, is with the 8K cameras and stuff like that. Maybe that's where it's going to go. Yeah, to the VR space.
And you need it to also for larger screens so it holds up on a larger. If you blow it up, you do want a higher resolution, so you do want it in 8K or higher.
Right. So did you always want it to be in film? Like when you were a kid, did you want to be a filmmaker or
always
work in show business?
enjoyed watching movies as a kid, and I never necessarily saw myself working in the industry, but I was always interested in the history part of it. Where I grew up, Hollywood wasn't Hollywood. It was always a place that could have been anywhere. It's now centered, of course, in Atlanta, where I think you're based, right?
Yeah, that's where I live.
But Hollywood in the silent era was very, very much in transition, and it took a while to land in Hollywood. They were filmmaking there for a long time, but it they found themselves making films out of my hometown in Santa Cruz, California. And that history was lost for many years. And then I sort of discovered, oh, there was film here. You know, film could happen anywhere. And Silent Era had the luxury of experimenting and going to different locations and different towns and being able to make films anywhere. And Santa Cruz was one of those unique places where it saw a lot of the key people in the industry making films there in the silent era. But of course, everything transitioned to Hollywood quickly then. And so when as a student, I sort of found and latched onto that history and loved it. I did take some production courses, but found that I was not very interested in production. It takes a very special person to negotiate that side, that I didn't have the aptitude or the talent to do that. So I found my niche. You have to find your own niche in what you like. And archiving was sort of what I decided. Oh yeah, I like the history. I like that aspect of film. So the nice thing about the film industry, it's not necessarily film, but the necessary telling stories. There's so many aspects, so a wide variety of jobs that you can find your own place in. You don't need to be a director or a costume. There's so many places that you can find your own place that you're comfortable in. There's
Absolutely.
So I found my own piece of mind, or
editor.
my own slice of play that I really liked about it. So, and I feel that I'm in the best place that I can be, and still be part of filmmaking.
You're doing an amazing job, man. You're actually the first film archivist that I've ever got to interview or speak to.
Well,
so yeah, you
there's many of
definitely
us.
shine the light on.
Many of us, and I grew up knowing a guy that did film. The first film restorer I knew was a guy named Robert A. Harris, and he worked on films like Lawrence of Arabia and Spartacus and Vertigo, My Fair Lady, some very key films of Hollywood. And when I saw his films being restored, it's like that sort of introduced me to, wow, that there's someone that does that kind of work. I never thought of it. And it is. There's not a hell of a lot of jobs in this field, so. But there is some amazing, talented people that I work with, and I'm fortunate and lucky to have found my way on this path. So,
I recently watched a film on YouTube. Forget the guy's name, but he was he worked in the audio. He was a sound engineer and special effects engineer for film, and he showed how meticulous the process is of getting the sound right and getting the special effects right.
Yeah.
For like a movie, and how he would use different fruits and hit it with a hammer to make the noise of a bone breaking.
They got very talented Foley artists that to do that. I mean, we're lucky in Northern California. We have Lucas, who has a great Foley thing. But in sound, when you talk about sound restoration, sound is a very difficult. There's two sides of the restoration for motion pictures. There's always two sides, and you can't forget about the sound side of restoration. That's equally very difficult, because a lot of the technology doesn't exist, or you have to find places that kept a lot of the hardware. We talk about computers and software. Sometimes you have to keep the old computers going because the software is not made anymore. And that Pro Tools is a very, very difficult. Sometimes I have to load up a computer that had Pro Tools a certain version because the plugins only existed in that. Or even in an analog world, a lot of the film dubbers are disappearing, and so you have to find companies that still have them and maintain it, and still have an engineer that can still keep them running. So that's a challenge is equally challenging in the motion picture world, digital and analog.
Oh yeah, I started out in music. So that's Pro Tools, that was the industry standard for what we used to record in. And recording your vocals and making sure it's high quality, making sure it sounds just as good as in the house as it does playing it in the vehicle. It's a very, very you got to pay attention to what you're doing. You got to put in a lot of effort, and it's time consuming, and meticulous, just like film.
Yes, and one thing you should all be aware of is when you record these things today on your digital and whatever software you're working on, you have to make sure you migrate your data periodically, because you don't know if that version of the software is going to be playable in 10 years or be able to access. A lot of times you find that these things are backwards compatible and you can't open it up, but we've had problems opening up projects that are just 20 years old. It's not a lot of time. You think about it, and you think, oh, 20 years is a lot. It goes by fast. So it's more problematic in software and hardware these days, because things change, updates come periodically, and you're not sure if you'll be able to open up your older projects or your old sound files. Thankfully, waves are been around, but before wave, those standards, it is hard to find sometimes those plugins to be able to open up those files. So migrate. As much as, if anything comes away from this conversation, is make sure you migrate your digital files periodically. You have a routine, because you these things are precious to you, and you need to make sure that you do stay on it.
Absolutely. Does anybody in here have any more questions for Mr. Mockoski? All right. Tanya?
So I wanted to find out what kind of pizzazz are you guys going to do for The Godfather 50? I mean, like, that's a huge...
Well, the pizzazz, I mean, we had a premiere. It was out in theaters for 1 week in the United States at AMC Dolby Cinemas. It was on, I don't know if you're aware, the Dolby Cinemas, the laser projector. They did a special 1 week run there. I hope it goes out a little wider. So that's we're waiting to see if that's they have the ability to get the film back out to a wider audience. We'll see that. And then next week the 4K discs will go out. So that's pretty much it. But there will be more. If you stay tuned and you stay on Twitter, I'll post coming announcement. But there will be stuff coming out later in the year to honor the celebration.
Nice. Any partnerships with any streaming sites?
That is a good question. I believe that Paramount's relationship is through all the standard, like Amazon, Apple, iTunes, and Netflix. So it will go out through those outlets.
Cool. They have their I know they have an app, Paramount.
They have Paramount Plus too. So I suspect they'll probably give an exclusive out on that, just to give them a, not like HBO and Warner, usually get an exclusive on that. So
nice. Yeah. Definitely excited. And
yeah. And just stay tuned on my
project you're working
if
on.
you're interested in restorations. I do post about what projects I'm working on and the process. And if you ever have questions about what I'm doing, that's the best way to engage on that and find out what other things are coming out.
Awesome. I will definitely be checking your Twitter periodically to see what you're working on. And brother, I appreciate this interview so much. You guys are like legends. You're giants in the game.
No, Francis is. I play a small part, but I enjoy my part, but I play a small part, because in filmmaking, as we all know, it's a team sport. So,
absolutely. Yeah. In our eyes, you're a giant to us, man. And like I said, I appreciate you coming through here, taking the time to speak with us. Yeah, this was actually an amazing interview. I couldn't have asked for anything better.
I appreciate it, and I thank you.
And I appreciate everybody else for coming into the room today. I think she crypto left, but she had some amazing questions.
Those are the kind of things I like. I appreciate that, engaging with people that, you know, you cannot ask for anything better. So I thank you.
Absolutely. Thank my wonderful co-host, Tanya.
Nice meeting you, Tanya.
My right hand when it comes to this.
I learned a lot today too. And you know, there's so many opportunities. You really think about all the different things from the new movies that were made, and also the old movies that are being remade. So it's you know, to see a different point of view is great. Yeah. I want to say hi to my friend Nick in here too. I haven't seen him in forever. Hi Nick. Nick is a space host also, but he does fundraising, and he's from the UK. And then I want to say hi to Brent. Thank you, Brent, for all your support. And Manny, thank you very much for being here. And Chanel, welcome. And also Sundog, it's great seeing you. And also Michael, I haven't seen you and spoken to you in a while there. But yeah, I really appreciate you coming on, and I learned so much, and I'm obsessed with The Godfather. So
yeah, it's a nice thing about the film industry that there is so much variety in jobs. So. And it keeps expanding. You look at the Pixar films and you see all the amount of positions it takes to make one film. You know, it's an amazing industry in the world. So the best.
Awesome. And I like to do every episode is I will be sending this to you on Twitter, tagging you with. I would like to present you with the golden ticket. You are now in the Starseed Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, I appreciate it, sir.
So
we'll continue the dialogue throughout. So let's make this the starting conversation.
Yes, sir. And I'd like to call wrap on today. This was an amazing conversation, and thank you guys for coming out.
Thank you.
See y'all next one.
Take care.
Thank you, brother.